I understand a lot of you out there are not Central Arkansas fans. And a lot of you out there are not Austin Peay fans. But I have to tell you that I had an inordinate amount of fun watching this football game on Saturday night because of all of the battling over the years. It feels like years over the past several weeks and over the past several months about whether or not there was going to be a college football season at all. And this felt like a tremendous win to be able to actually play a college football game. We got games coming this week in FBS, but I got to give credit to Central Arkansas for the win, to Austin Peay for playing, to Montgomery, Alabama for hosting it. Not only did we have a college football game, we had a college football game with crowds. And there's so much fun to have with all of the awful predictions about how we wouldn't have college football. And I feel for all the people out there in the Big Ten and Pac-12 who listened to me that were watching this program and they were thinking to themselves, my goodness, we've got Central Arkansas with more wins for the fall 2020 football season than anybody in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 is going to end up with. It's the biggest win for Scottie Pippen's alma mater of all time. But there's so much to dive into here. We got a loaded show for you. I'm going to talk about a lot of things in today's show, including the idiocy of many sports leagues and many athletes now that we know more about Jacob Blake. That's going to be a serious discussion. That will come a little bit later. We're going to have Jason Whitlock on the program, much to discuss. But I want to have a little bit of fun to start with over college football being back. Again, FBS kicks off on Thursday. Dub, you can look up the roster of games. I think I had them pulled up on my phone a little bit earlier because I was already trying to think about who I was going to bet on and what the scenarios were going to be in order for those bets to be out there. But I got to tell you, it just feels good to be able to pull up the schedule and have NCAA football with games that are actually going on. All right, Thursday of this week, Central Arkansas, who is now 1-0, will be playing their second game. So they are going on the road against UAB. That's Thursday. That's FBS football kicking off. And then we'll also have South Alabama against Southern Miss, which will be a Thursday game. And then going into the weekend, which obviously is going to be Labor Day, we got some wacky, these games are going to get more attention for all these schools than they've ever gotten before. This is the roster so far as I can see it. Eastern Kentucky is playing Marshall. So we'll have that game going on Saturday. Then we've got MTSU, Middle Tennessee on the road against Army. We've got SMU against Texas State. Houston Baptist against North Texas. Arkansas State against Memphis. And then we've got Stephen F. Austin against UTEP. That's your Saturday slate of games that I just ran through, which a lot of you are going to be watching, crazily enough. You can start at noon Eastern, basically, and go all the way till midnight, with a lot of different wacky games going on. And then on Monday, we'll have BYU going up against Navy, which is probably the best game of the weekend. And so props to all those schools that'll be going. And then it gets a little bit more interesting because in week 2 of the season, you'll start to have a bunch of the sort of the blue bloods playing. Right now, we got Clemson scheduled to play then. We've got Oklahoma scheduled to play then. Notre Dame is playing. Texas, Oklahoma State, UNC, Iowa State, all of those schools officially underway. My point is here, everybody out there who listens to this program knows that I love college football. And we have just spent so much time fighting over whether college football was going to be played or not that I took a great deal of joy watching toe meet leather and that football go sailing through the air. And we're scheduled, by the way, to talk with Joel Klatt as well, Fox's lead college football analyst. But here were some of the predictions. We used to have Old Takes Exposed on the program regularly. He's working on a new book. He's a really good dude. But here are some of the predictions that were out there in the last month about college football being canceled. Pat Forty at Sports Illustrated, prominent industry source, quote, I think by the end of the week, fall sports will be postponed in all conferences. That was on August 8th. Pete Thamel at Yahoo Sports. Pessimism in college football has spiraled to fatalism. Time to face reality. Quote, no one is playing college football in the fall. Dan Wolken, basically his entire life for the last several months at USA Today has been no one is ever allowed to do anything ever again because of the coronavirus. Pat Forty again. Breaking news with @Ross Dellinger. Nationwide conference meetings this week are expected to result in the postponement of the 2020 college football season and all fall sports. Quote, we've got work to do that's no fun. All of these out there. Bomani Jones, why I can't see there being any football this fall. We've got all different sorts of people. Mike Florio over at Pro Football Talk. The people who will complain the loudest about no college football season are also the people most responsible for that outcome. Sorry, Florio, you loser. We got football. Darren Ravel, king of the Coronabros. Many SEC fans wanted their states and their economy open and their right to not wear a mask. How's your football season looking, guys? Looking really good, Darren. We can't wait. Thanks for asking. Rick Dixon. Sorry, this was somebody who was sharing one of the Pete Thamel stories about no one is playing college football in the fall. So all of those people, 100 billion% wrong. But what I want you to think about is this. They were using anonymous quotes to say that college football was not going to happen. Where do you think those anonymous quotes came from? The Big Ten. I feel bad for Big Ten fans. I feel bad for Big Ten players. I feel bad for Big Ten parents. But what was going on here was pretty straightforward. The Big Ten was trying to bully everyone else in college athletics into quitting because they didn't want anybody else to be able to play if they were going to take their ball and go home. They were using the media. Be sophisticated here. They were using the media, seeding anonymous quotes in articles to try to drive up the pressure on everyone else to cancel. And this is why I always say, I don't believe that I have ever been an anonymous quote source for any media figure ever in a story that's been written. I really don't believe that's ever happened. And the reason why I have never been an anonymous quoted source in a story that's run is because if I'm not willing to put my name to it and say it on this program or write it on my website or say it on television or wherever else, I'm not going to hide behind anonymity and try to get somebody else to use my quotes. I'm telling you this honestly. I do not believe, in fact, I'm pretty much 100% sure that I have never been quoted in any story as an anonymous source. You don't have to love me. In fact, some of you hate me. But everything I believe, I come on this radio program, I go on the Outkick shows, I write on my website with my own name behind it. And we have fought like you wouldn't believe, many of us have out there, to try to make sure that college football happened and to be able to enjoy a game like Central Arkansas going up against Austin Peay and be able to just watch that game when so many people out there in the media have been carrying water. I call them the Coronabros, as you know, carrying water for all these commissioners and all these people trying to cancel the seasons without putting their actual names on the line. Guys, the Big Ten presidents and chancellors have still not put their actual names on the line with whether they voted to allow college football or not. That's why the lawsuit is happening in Nebraska. And I applaud all those kids out there. The 8 different Nebraska college football players, all the parents who have been supporting the idea of playing. I applaud it full-fledged because I think the taxpayers who are paying $13.6 million in order for the presidents and chancellors of 13 Big Ten public schools, state schools, they should have to go on the record and explain to everyone, the players, the coaches, the parents, the fans out there, why in the world they're not playing. I mean, the fix is in here, guys. If you don't see it, I'm sorry. Look at Pennsylvania. You've got Temple playing, you've got Pitt playing, you've got the Steelers playing, and you've got the Eagles playing. And you're telling me Penn State can't play? Especially when high school football is also going on? Think about that for a minute. We got a lot of listeners listening to us right now in Pennsylvania. A lot of Nittany Lion fans. I love James Franklin. Think he's done a great job with that program. Been up to watch a game in your stadium. Had an incredible time. All right? It's a great venue, great environment, super beautiful setting. I got to tell you, high school kids all over Pennsylvania are playing. NFL teams, Steelers, Eagles, both playing. You got the you got the city of Philadelphia, Temple's playing. You got the city of Pittsburgh, you got Pitt playing, and you're telling me that Penn State can't play? It's insanity. Same thing's going on in Ohio. In Ohio, you've got high school football taking place. You've got the University of Cincinnati playing. And you also have the Browns and the Bengals playing, to the extent those two teams ever play. Sorry. A tough time to be an NFL fan in general of teams in Ohio. A lot of futility from the Browns and the Bengals. But you got both of those teams playing, and you got the University of Cincinnati and high schools, and you're telling me the Ohio State Buckeyes can't play? And then as if that were not enough, you can just go over to Iowa and you can see what's going on at Iowa. Iowa State is playing. All the high schools in Iowa are playing. They played high school baseball months ago, and they had nearly 30,000 fans present. And you're telling me that Iowa can't play? The fix is in, guys. I'm just, the day on Friday that I saw Joe Biden running television advertisements in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, saying the reason the Big Ten wasn't playing was because Donald Trump was president, I said, I'm sorry, this is a rig job. This is a rig job of the highest order. The president of the United States, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, he came on this program before the Big Ten shut down and before the Pac-12 shut down and said it would be a tragic mistake if they didn't play college football in all the major conferences. And then after he made those comments, the Big Ten shut down and the Pac-12 shut down. Now let's leave the Pac-12 off on the side for a minute because nobody seems to be willing to fight for Pac-12 football, which may tell you something about why Pac-12 football isn't really competing for championships very often. Let's just focus on the Big Ten. The governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, who we invited, Danny G did, we invited her to come on this radio program, said she was glad there was no high school football in the state of Michigan, said she was glad there was no Big Ten football. Democratic governors in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin, and in a lot of other states out there in the Big Ten territory, it feels like they exerted political pressure to keep the Big Ten schools from playing. And it feels like football and football fans and football players and parents all got caught in a vice that was designed to keep football from being played because Democrats decided it would make Donald Trump look bad if football wasn't being played. This is how wild it is. Your kid gets to play high school football this year almost exclusively if you happen to live in a state with a Republican governor. 25 out of 26 states with Republican governors are playing football this fall. I might be not 100% plugged in, but I believe the only state with a Republican governor, the last time I looked, is Maryland, that is not playing. If your kid happens to live in a Democratic-led governor state, then there is a 15 out of 22 chance that they are not playing. How did this happen? How did football, which I think everybody loves, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're an independent, how did it get to the place where college football, whether or not you're going to be able to play college football, is a function almost entirely of whether or not you happen to have a Republican or a Democratic governor? That shouldn't matter. The data should matter. The data should govern. And by the way, the data is telling us a whale of a story. And that story is this: we are seeing hospitalizations plunge from the coronavirus across this country. 2-month low on Sunday for the number of people hospitalized with the coronavirus. Cases are plummeting. Also, deaths are plunging. We are rapidly getting back to normalcy in this country. And I want to hit you with this fact that also matters, and for some reason nobody is talking about. The CDC released a bunch of new information on their website over the weekend. They said, and you can go read this at outkick.com if you want, it's directly linked to the CDC website, of the people who have died of the coronavirus in this country, only 6% of them are listed as solely COVID deaths. In other words, they didn't have comorbidities. 6%. 94% of the people who died of the coronavirus didn't just have one comorbidity, they had an average of 2.6. Means if you had lung cancer and kidneys that weren't working and you died of the coronavirus, you died with the coronavirus. In other words, 4th stage lung cancer, kidneys that aren't working, and you test positive for the coronavirus, they counted you as a coronavirus death. We are dealing with a mass amount of fear that has directly infiltrated whether people are able to go to work, whether they're able to go to school, and whether they are able to go to sports. And I can't believe that this is the world we find ourselves in right now, but you have to look at the data yourself. There is zero reason that the Big Ten schools aren't playing football. There is zero reason that the Pac-12 schools aren't playing football. The fact that they aren't playing is political in nature. It is fear porn writ large. It is people who didn't look at the actual data and hid behind all of the anonymity and the fact that they didn't have to go public with how they were voting. And everybody who's a Big Ten or a Pac-12 fan should be disgusted with the fact that college football is going to go on, and not just is college football going to go on, but there are going to be fans in the stands. There already were on Saturday, there will be on Thursday, there will be on Saturday, and there will be again on Monday. And then the week after that, all of the biggest schools are going to be back, and they are going to be playing. This is a shameful, in my opinion, failure of sports and of sports leaders to actually look at the data and make rational decisions, and not to run and hide and buy in to the fear porn. Go read it for yourself at Outkick. I can't believe that the world has gone so insane that I am now a voice of reason, but that is where we are. I never would have believed, and by the way, thank you for all the support that Outkick is getting. Today is the final day of the month. We have grown our podcast, I bet, faster this month than any sports talk radio show in the entire country. Our audience is, I'm trying to do the math live in my head, we have over tripled our audience since March. Unheard of in sports talk radio to grow like we have. And you say, why has that happened? It's because there's a desperate desire for truth and honesty and someone who just shares facts and tells people you don't need to be buried underneath the covers in your bedroom. You can go outside. You're going to be fine. There's a desperate desire for that. And that's what we do at Outkick. Try to be smart, share the data with you. I'm not telling you that every one of my opinions is going to be right. In fact, if you gamble, you know that I give you, unfortunately, I wish I could get them all right. I give you a lot of gambling picks that end up being wrong. But I can promise to you that my facts are going to be correct. You may not agree with where my opinions take me, but my facts with you are always going to be correct. And so as we start off this Monday with college football back, and by the way, being able to say, next week the NFL is back. You believe that? After all we've been through, next week we've got NFL football. It's wild. Thursday night football. Texans going to be on the road against the Chiefs. We've almost made it all the way back to the NFL, but we have made it all the way back to college football. And I am so glad that there were enough people looking at the facts in the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the small conferences that decided to keep fighting, and even those FCS schools that played on Saturday night, Central Arkansas going up against Austin Peay. God bless all you guys for actually looking at the data and making it happen. All right, we got a lot to get to all throughout the course of this program. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and MLS, and why I believe they all humiliated and embarrassed themselves by not playing last week. And I'm going to explain to you why that is.
This is Outkick the Coverage with Clay Travis.
We had the shutdown basically happen with all of the different sports leagues of a different variety, right? All the NBA shut down in the playoffs. All of the NHL shut down. Not every, I don't think, Major League Baseball team ended up sitting out. I don't know what the total number of teams that ended up skipping a game was, but it was pretty substantial. I think everybody in the MLS did too. The WNBA shut down. There was a lot of different leagues out there that made the decision that they were not going to play in the wake of the Jacob Blake incident in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And what's wild about all this is all of these athletes and all of these leagues made the decision to shut down without knowing what the actual facts of the case were. And most people in sports media are never going to come back and talk to you about this because they're going to be so afraid to talk about it, as if there are certain facts that if they become uncomfortable, you just don't address. But obviously, that's not what we do at Outkick. I try to be as honest with you as I can every single day, which is why we wrote about this at Outkick, and I think we were the only sports media site to actually put this up, as all of the details started to come up and come out surrounding the Kenosha situation, okay? So the facts have come out now, and many of you are not even going to know the facts about the Jacob Blake incident because you're just going to have seen the 15 or 20-second video that went viral on social media, which prompted everybody to take action. The problem is when videos are being cut and they're being distributed, you have to be very careful to not believe that they are 100% accurate or that they're completely representative of everything that went on. What do I mean by that? Whatever you believe in this world right now, there is a viral video that will convince you that what you believe is true. That's an important lesson that most people don't think about. Whatever video is out there that you believe proves that your worldview is correct, there is another video that somebody else is watching that shows you the exact opposite. How does that happen? Because we live in such a big world and such a big country that there are simultaneously so many different things going on, some of which confirm your worldview, some of which challenge your worldview. And so when there are 330 million people in the United States every day, and when virtually everyone has a cell phone, there are always videos rapidly circulating around social media that are designed to provoke emotional reactions from you, whether you are a right winger, whether you are a left winger, whether you are white, black, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Every group has its own videos that are circulating at all times. Muslims have them, Christians have them, Jews have them, everybody, men, women, everything is out there. Okay, so that's why I always say, let's hit the pause button and let's wait and see what the totality of the facts are. And that's me kind of putting my lawyer hat on and saying, when you are in the practice of law, you learn very early that there are two stories, really three stories. There's his story, there's her story, there's the truth. There's two different adversarial sides, and usually the truth is somewhere in between both of those adversarial sides. And so with the Jacob Blake story, what actually happened was the woman called 911 because she had accused Jacob Blake of felony sexual assault, and he showed up at her house. She called 911 seeking police help. This black woman called 911 in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The police arrive. They attempt to take Jacob Blake into custody because he has an outstanding felony warrant against him. He refuses to be taken into custody. He does not succumb to a taser. He puts a police officer in a headlock. He continues to refuse to listen to police officer instruction. He then walks around the car, opens the door, and reaches in to grab a knife, at which point he is shot. All you saw, probably on social media, was the shooting. Okay? I'm not necessarily commenting on whether or not there might have been excessive force used. That's a determination that a DA can make. That's a determination that a Department of Justice investigation can undertake. What I am pointing out is almost none of the athletes waited for facts. Almost none of the leagues waited for facts. They all reacted to a 15 or 20 second video, which didn't in any way provide a full illustration of what had actually happened during the course of that interaction. And so everybody rushes out. There's protests, there's riots. People additionally die in the city of Kenosha, all as a result of a partial video. The WNBA women on a basketball team walk out and spell Jacob Blake's name on T-shirts, with each of them having a letter there. The majority of those players are black women. They are directly spitting in the face of the woman who accused Jacob Blake of sexual assault. It's mind-blowing how quickly people react and how quickly mob rule takes over on social media. People don't wait to see what the actual facts are. And unfortunately, I believe very often, instead of making things better, athletes are making things worse. Instead of making the country a safer and better place for people of all races, I think they're making it more dangerous for everybody. I think they are spending more time dividing than they are uniting.
This is Outkick the Coverage with Clay Travis.
Appreciate all of you coming to hang out with us. This is Outkick on Fox Sports Radio. And I said, look, I've got an idea, okay? There's a lot of talk about parents discussing how to respond to police with their kids. And I'm going to talk about this with Jason Whitlock to start off the next hour as well. My argument to all of you is that every parent should have the same conversation with their kids, regardless of whether they're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, boy or girl, gay or straight, whatever your identity of your child is. I set down my kids in the wake of this Jacob Blake incident, and I said to them, hey, I'm a lawyer. You guys know that your dad knows what the law is as it pertains to police and your interactions with them. But your dad's probably not going to be with you all the time. Your mom's not going to be with you all the time. Here's what you do. Every time a police officer speaks to you, you respond yes, sir, no, sir to him, or yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to them. You don't ever argue with them. You don't ever cop an attitude with them. You don't ever talk back. You do exactly as that officer says. Because if an officer is behaving inappropriately, trust me, your dad is a lawyer. We will find out. If you are not a lawyer, you can tell your kids, hey, we will talk to a lawyer if a police officer behaves inappropriately with you. But the good thing about talking with a lawyer is that means that you are fine and you survived every encounter that you ever had with the police. If you go and look at almost every violent encounter that anyone has with the police, they all have something in common. The person is not listening to the police officer from the moment that that conversation begins. I'm not saying police officers are imperfect. That they're perfect. I totally understand that they, like all other humans, are imperfect. But imagine if instead of trying to demonize police officers and create more tension between officers and the people that they are pulling over or the people that they are policing all over our country, imagine if athletes said, hey, listen to police and treat them with respect. Imagine how much less conflict would exist in our country and how much safer it would be for police officers and for all the people that they're trying to protect out there. We got a lot of police officers that listen to us every day in all 50 states on this program. They tell us that they have never been more disrespected or more in danger on the streets than they are right now. A lot of that has to do with the idea that you don't have to listen to a police officer. Everyone out there, if you listen to the police officer, if you get arrested and you don't deserve it, you can fight it in a court of law. If you are fighting with a police officer, you are creating a violent situation. If you are not listening to a police officer, you are creating a more dangerous situation. It is a powder keg right now across our nation. Imagine if every sports league came out and every athlete came out and said, hey, when you are involved in any interaction with a police officer, don't create conflict. That's what I tell my kids. That's what I think almost everyone out there should be telling their kids. Don't create situations by refusing to listen to police officers. Obey their instructions. That's what I was told when I was a kid. That's what I'm telling my kids now. It seems to me to be a situation and a solution where we can get a better outcome. Instead of always trying to create conflict and trying to demonize all police officers, when the truth of the matter is the vast, vast majority of police officers are saving lives every single day. And we know that because as soon as we keep them from doing their jobs, do you know what happens all over the country? The murder rate skyrockets and the number of shootings skyrocket. Why can't everyone talk to their kids and say the same thing? Listen to police officers, treat them with respect. And by the way, I want police officers to all treat people with respect too. If they don't, they should lose their jobs. They should also be fired. But the way to lessen the tension on our streets right now is by telling everybody to behave with mutual respect. And if someone pulls you over or a police officer asks you a question, respond to him or her as you would respond to a teacher or another adult. Don't antagonize or create a worse situation. Comply with their requests, and we avoid many, many, many of the violent incidents that are incredibly dangerous for both officers and the people they're trying to police. I'm going to talk about this with Jason Whitlock when we come back. I think it would be a fantastic help to what is already powder keg situations all over our country. This is Outkick on Fox Sports.